Hey everybody, what's going on? Aaron here. Welcome to the video. So Bitcoin just broke $111,000. Incredible. I'm going to talk all about Bitcoin and altcoins and what I think is going to be happening in the future. So I posted on X that no text from friends or family. We're going higher. Retail isn't here yet. And I think that's really important because retail is not here. You take a look at the Google Trends for crypto, super low. For Bitcoin, super low. And Bitcoin, again, just broke into a new all-time high, right? Bitcoin right now coming down a little bit. I'll share more about, do I think we're going to retrace further and farther? Why or why not? A little bit later in the video. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin broke through, blasted through the all-time high, and nobody's here. Nobody's talking about it. New YouTube subscribers, super low. New Twitter followers, incredibly low. New YouTube views, insanely low, right? And again, we just broke through a new all-time high. Even the fear and greed index isn't even extremely greedy, which is crazy. Let me refresh this just to be accurate here. So crypto fear and greed index, yeah, it's 73. We're not even in the type of greed we saw in November when Bitcoin's price was just under $100,000. This chart over on Into the Cryptoverse, link below if you'd like a 10% discount. We can see that 2025 for Bitcoin is now doing pretty well, right? We're seeing it match essentially what we did in 2021 in terms of its ROI for the year. Now we're comparing 2017, 21, and 25 because those are all years after the Bitcoin halving. We definitely saw a slump here when Bitcoin was like $78,000 not too long ago. And now we are hitting what we saw in 2021. And that year progressed and Bitcoin did a 2x at its peak, a 2x. And right now we are at around a 1.145x. So just barely over where we were at the beginning of the year. Liquidations, we're seeing them because a lot of people were shorting Bitcoin, and that's what happens. But take a look here. This is very important. So this is the top 100 coins. Now, why is this important? Well, Bitcoin just broke its all-time high, and we are seeing altcoins rally really, really hard. And this is what I expected to see. This is what I expect to see. So Bitcoin breaks its all-time high, and then we see Ethereum top layer ones rally as well, and then altcoins rally after that. If you take a look at some of the categories on CoinMarketCap, you can see the top AI coins up a ton over the last 24 hours. Real world asset coins, mostly up. The largest coins are up over the last 24 hours. Take a look at gaming, another sector I think is still going to do very well. Most of the top coins, very large market cap coins, are up over the last 24 hours. So right here, if you want to trade, if you want to buy some of these altcoins, and if you are a trader, you can check out BTCC, where they're offering a 10% bonus on first-time deposits, up to $10,000 to $55 per user. I'll leave the link to that below, guys. So I'm not surprised that Bitcoin is rallying. I have been sharing for a long time. I think Bitcoin will eventually hit $1 million. It may take some time, but I want to play this video. It's a little bit long. Hopefully you stick with it. This is Ray Dalio, one of the most successful investors of all time, talking today or yesterday about the bond market. Let's take a look.
The bond market is the basis, it's the backbone of all markets. It is the risk-free, meaning default-free, probably default-free, interest rate that determines what all asset returns are going to be. And when there is a breakdown of the supply-demand picture for the bond market,
just to pause there, we are seeing that there is a soft demand in the 20-year Treasury auction. So just want to mention that and come back to the video.
You see long rates rising relative to short rates. You see the currency go down.
So let's take a look. Gold over the last 24 hours has gone up, right? We see up for gold. Taking a look at the dollar, it is down. So what he's saying is accurate. And right here, we can see the 20-year is down. We are now over 5%.
Because there's a movement out of that bond market because there's a supply and demand imbalance. When that happens, that raises interest rates, and it puts the Federal Reserve and other central banks in a bind. That supply-demand imbalance, in order to deal with that, when there's not enough demand, they're torn between allowing interest rates to rise and have the negative effect that has on markets and the economy, or coming in and
printing money, guys. So the Fed is going to step in my opinion, and they're going to be forced to print US dollars.
And buying bonds in order to provide the demand for those bonds that aren't there.
It means that risk assets are going to go up. It means that stocks are going to go up. It means that Bitcoin is going to continue to rally hard. In my opinion, it means that Ethereum and altcoins will rally as well. It means that gold will probably rally. So taking a look right here, we can see that long US bonds sold off Wednesday with a 30-year US Treasury bond yield closing at 5.089%, the highest yield since October 2023, following a disappointing 20-year US Treasury auction and a historic sell-off in Japanese bonds. So if that doesn't make any sense, it's fine. I mean, ultimately, it just means that holding bonds, Ray Dalio is saying, may not be a great idea. And if the US begins to print, which I believe they will, then that means holding riskier assets like Bitcoin, and in my opinion, like altcoins as well, is a good idea because those will rally. So in other news, the Texas Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill passes and goes to the governor's desk for a final signature. And that takes me to David Sachs saying that stablecoin legislation is about to pass the Senate and Bitcoin just hit a new all-time high. Right here, David Sachs is on CNBC saying that the Genius Act stablecoin bill will, quote, pass with significant bipartisan support. So Democrats, Republicans will pass this. This is good news for crypto and stablecoins and everything in the crypto space. This is Dan Moorhead, billionaire investor. Let's hear what he has to say about Bitcoin and where it's going to go.
It stores $600 billion in gold, which is a staggering amount. It's equivalent to 11 million years of American worker wages. So that's kind of crazy. Go to digital gold. Bitcoin, it's much better. And so I do think it's totally rational. The US already owns 1% of the world's Bitcoins. Keep that, increase that.
And he's saying that, move the $600 billion that we have in gold to Bitcoin. Now, he's probably very heavily invested in Bitcoin. So he's, talking his own book, as they say, but we'll see. We have Bitcoin jumping over Google and Amazon, and now it's the fifth largest asset, one could say, $2.16 trillion or so. Actually, a little bit more as of me making this video because this was at $108,000 of Bitcoin. So will it continue to pass up Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, and eventually gold? I think it will. And just a little tangent here. If you want a credit card, a MasterCard, that you can get Bitcoin every single time you use it, this is my Gemini card. Has my name on the back right there. Very, very thick metal card. And you can basically use it and get up to 4% depending on what category you are. And you can get paid directly in Bitcoin or up to 50 other cryptos. Very, very cool. I'll include the link to that below. I've been using this a lot and I have been highly enjoying it. It's a very, very good card. So on a recent podcast, we had Jack Mallers, who is the CEO of 21. They are essentially a MicroStrategy-like company that is buying and accumulating as much Bitcoin as possible. Let's take a look.
If we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of the Bitcoin network and, the Tether network and a lot of experience and lessons at Strike and my life lived there, we think the combination of all, it's going to be really interesting.
So in the comments, some people are like, is it good that one company wants to get 5% of the Bitcoin network, essentially have 5% of Bitcoin? What does this mean for Bitcoin? Well, I think we're too soon to really be talking about this. What's happening is happening. There are companies like Metaplanet that doubled in stock over the last 24 hours. There are other Bitcoin treasury companies like MicroStrategy, like Semler, like others that are basically acquiring Bitcoin, and that's all they're doing right now. This is happening, and I think this is pushing the price up. Right here, this is a chart saying Bitcoin is becoming America's reserve asset. So 37 million Americans own gold, and around 50 million Americans own Bitcoin. Very interesting. I saw this and I was like, I didn't expect that. And I think the reason is because it's a lot easier to own Bitcoin than to own gold. Now, you can own gold through some proxies like in a retirement account, but it's also a lot easier to own Bitcoin. You can buy it in PayPal, buy it in Venmo, buy it in Cash App, buy it in, so many places, Coinbase, of course. So it's interesting. Because will Bitcoin's market cap surpass gold? I think it will. Scott Melker on Twitter says Bitcoin is up 3K on a day that the stock market dipped and the dollar was down and yield spiked. He's saying, how is this a correlated asset again? So I've been covering this for a while and saying that I think Bitcoin is still seen as a tech stock, right? Bitcoin is still seen as like a leveraged tech stock, but days like today, it doesn't seem like it. Taking a look right here, we can see that the NASDAQ is down or was down around 1.3%, the S&P down 1.6%, and then we can see the dollar down as well right here. So very interesting. And this chart, which a lot of people reference, is the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. Essentially, how has Ethereum been performing in terms of Bitcoin? And it hasn't been great at all. You can see here, ever since essentially the end of 2022, it's been better to hold Bitcoin than Ethereum. Today, we did see that it made essentially more sense to hold Ethereum than Bitcoin when Bitcoin hit a new all-time high. So I do predict, and taking a look at Solana Bitcoin as well, we saw the same thing. When Bitcoin rallies to new all-time highs, then stays there and creates kind of like a foundation, right? Then we can see other big layer ones rally as well. This is what has always happened. So if it doesn't happen, I would be shocked. But this is what I think is going to happen. So just finishing the video here about Bitcoin, we're seeing all of this incredibly bullish news, like I've been sharing every single day for a long time, right? So I'm not surprised that Bitcoin hit new all-time highs at all. I'm not surprised at all. We've known that there have been some weaknesses in the bond market for years. People have been talking about it. Now, what a lot of people are curious about is Bitcoin going to retrace? Are we going to see a retracement in Bitcoin? If I put money on it, I would say yes. I would say that Bitcoin would maybe come down 10 or 15%, but we could go higher before we see that retracement. And that's the part that nobody can predict. Nobody knows how high Bitcoin will go until we see a retracement, right? Until we see maybe a 10 or 15% retracement. Right now, that would be going down maybe to $100,000 to $95,000. But I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I hope it doesn't. I hope Bitcoin goes up forever, which I believe it will over time. But in the short term, right? In the short term, we just saw a massive retracement for Bitcoin not too long ago. That insane, it went down 31% in the course of like 2 to 3 months, right? We just saw that. Most of you watching lived through that. So to think that that could never happen again, I think is just a little bit foolish. I think that will happen again, but we could see the price of Bitcoin go quite a lot higher before we see a 10 or 15% retracement. So guys, that is it for the video. Check out BTCC below, and also check out Gemini if you want to grab their credit card. It's right here. Highly suggest it. It's super awesome. I've been using it basically every day for a while. And yeah, also if you don't have a hardware wallet, highly recommend Tangem. Been using that myself for a very, very long time, a few years. They are probably the cheapest hardware wallet out there. I'll leave a link to that below where you're going to get a 10% discount. Congrats on the all-time high if you were holding Bitcoin. And that is it for the video. Till next time, talk with you soon, and bye for now.